Okay, perfect. So like I said, I'm going to give an overview of a PSA and what that means. And then a little bit about working smarter within Affinity Live. And a lot of that is going to be how you can take all of your 20 tools or 10 and bring it all within one solution. And then our main focus is today on HDMZ and really the three different people in it. The VP of Ops, you can think of her as the traffic controller, in your case, Jared. Janice, who's the project manager, and then David, who's a web designer, web dev, but also does a lot of content creation and content writing. Main focus on projects, and then we'll probably have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for exploring different things outside of what we're going to really be focusing on today. So what is the PSA? It's a place to keep track of all your customers across our 4 different products. And now you're saying that there was some challenge, or at least a very manual process of putting together estimates and proposals. Are you currently managing new sales or new business? How does that look for your organization?
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
I mean, for your current customers, how do you track sending out proposals for new work you're doing, or for potentially new customers or people you haven't even contacted yet? Are you tracking new business and bringing in business through?
Yeah, I think what he's talking about, Jared, is that we have a pipeline report, and Jared used to manage that to kind of keep track of potential business and new business for existing clients.
Okay.
And that was in a Google Doc, right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then we also have several retainer clients as well.
Okay. Awesome. So in the CRM now, instead of having to just build an estimate out of a Google Doc and then connect that back to your pipeline report, now you have one place for all of your customers, and you can directly quote out of the CRM. And the quote is actually a full-blown project plan with dependencies and budgets and even who you want to assign things, pre-assign them to. So what we're seeing is a lot of more communication between the sales or the new outreach team and the project team, and also just a really nice, simple place to keep track of that.
That sounds great.
Are you going to go into a little bit more detail about that? Is this just kind of an overview of everything?
So what I'm now giving is an overview and to try to pique your interest on different places to explore. What I'm probably going to focus most of my time on is actually projects and how we can schedule and track costs. But we can focus, if we have time, a little bit on how to create quotes. Would you be interested in that?
Yeah, I think so. A couple months ago, we looked at Function Point, and it wasn't. It was someone that actually left the company that was spearheading this. But Jared, you were part of those training calls too. So maybe if we have time, Jared, you can go over the issues that we had with costing or why it wasn't working.
Yeah, we can get into that now or later, whatever you guys want. I do think that Function Point was super clunky for costing, and it didn't really allow the nuance. That costing is definitely more like an art than a science. Tell me if I'm wrong, Liz, but it definitely, like, there's more nuance than just, ABC. So I didn't think that Function Point really allowed for them to be as creative as they can be with costs.
Sure.
And it sort of forces you into a mold in how a project goes forward that didn't really work, I think, for everyone. So yeah, I would personally love to see the estimate kind of stuff, that how that works. But obviously being the traffic manager, I want to see the project stuff too. So
sure. Just really briefly, while we're talking about costing, what does cost mean for you? Is it an internal cost attached to an employee? Is it the actual Google AdWords cost? What is it?
It's the estimate we create for, like, the costing team will get specs for a project. It'll be like one email campaign. It needs to be set up on a certain platform, and then actually, executing the broadcast and all that. That's just one example of projects that we do on a regular basis, but getting those costs out to our internal team.
Mhm.
And then, once the client approves the actual dollar amount, then we'll push out a proposal.
Got it. Okay, perfect. That sounds like similar lingo of what we use as well.
Okay, cool.
And then on the CRM, now it's no longer, well, when do I contact this new customer for interest? What should I send them? What sort of emails should I be writing at any given time along the customer relationship? You can now build in a playbook to your sales, which essentially allows really anyone on your team to be able to move a new opportunity along all the different steps before you actually sign them on to that one email campaign. And then
Does this sync to Salesforce?
the contacts and the client information can sync to Salesforce, but this is essentially a replacement for Salesforce.
Okay.
Are you currently using Salesforce or thinking about it?
Currently use it.
Okay, perfect. So I, at the company I worked at before coming to Affinity Live, we internally use Salesforce, and it's very similar in the way that you update fields, but now we have a full email sync with your Gmail, and also the ability to have these custom workflows that are actually built into your whole entire workflow and quoting for projects versus just somewhere to track all your customers. Okay.
Great.
Okay. And the last part, which is kind of a fun area for sales, is because we time track across projects, retainers, and services for all of your client work, we also apply that same methodology to sales, which means we can now track our calls, our meetings, and all the emails we send back and forth and get a good sense on how long it's taking us to close new business. So moving over to the project side, we have live profitability. So any time that's being logged on projects, you can now see if it's going over and under budget and what are my margins on this particular project. Gantt planning and the ability to have critical paths, which means you no longer have to go back into Basecamp and update the due dates. If things are being pushed back, it's automatically tracking the critical path and updating it for you. Then on the retainer side, you're saying you had some retainer customers. How did those work? Is it based on every month I'm going to create this maybe 5 hours of content for you?
Sorry, I'm having lunch.
Sure.
While I'm watching the demo. Yeah, we have, our list of retainer clients is growing. But we essentially create a set number of hours for each client depending on the work they need done per month. So client A will have 100 hours per month, client B has maybe 200, client C has 30 hours per month. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does. So that's exactly what this does. It allows you to have predefined time blocks, which you sell, track any recurring tasks you need. For example, maybe there's some analytics or ROI measures that you want to do on a monthly basis, have that automatically populate, and then auto build them at the end of each period. And are you currently using QuickBooks or Xero for your accounting package?
QuickBooks.
Perfect. Perfect. Which means at the end of the month, you don't have to worry about all those retainers. We can have that automatically track the time that's being logged on them and then invoice your customers.
Very cool.
And then the last piece.
I think the accounting would like that.
It saves a lot of time. So in Basecamp, you're creating your to-do list every single month or every single quarter and having to recreate those templates every time. This just automatically does it for you. Then on the service component, this would be ad hoc work that you do for your customer. Let's say something outside of the scope of your projects or retainers, and they want to have maybe a new campaign, and it's something really small that you can work on. You can track it through this. Or if something goes down, let's say emails aren't sending out of Marketo correctly, and it falls on you to figure that out. you can put in tickets and actually track the resolution through that. So some powerful things in the ticketing side that you would expect in a full-blown ticket solution is if then triggers, if the customer hasn't gotten back to me in 7 days and I needed more information, let's say a login detail, send them an email saying, hey, what's your login? Resolution workflows, which allows you to take different ad hoc work or tickets and have a unique way to resolve them versus just open, close. And then a team inbox, which allows people to start sending emails into the sales or support queue and then filter it based on what sort of issues they're having, instead of you stepping over all the toes, or instead of having emails go to individual team members' personal inbox, you can start consolidating that. So those are our 4 different projects, or sorry, 4 different products, and today we'll be focusing mainly on projects. And what's specifically about them? Focus on our two-way email sync. I'll talk about Gmail, team scheduling, and then how someone can easily come in on the task board and timesheet, easily log their time, and then sync that automatically over to QuickBooks. So HDMZ is a digital marketing agency. They're based out of San Francisco, but also have offices in Chicago and a few remote people. And they build websites and marketing campaigns for biotech. And some challenges that they're having was that their team had all these different logins and they're often forgetting them. So there's really low adoption across all the different software. People would log in to harvest their time tracking, very similar to QuickTime, and log time, but it wasn't connected to really anywhere else within the system, and they weren't logging in to their collaboration tools or their project management software. And then functionally, nothing was talking to each other. So they're having this challenge of actually no integration and then holding the pieces together. And I'm sure Liz and Jared, you can relate to this, manually trying to hold a system together through spreadsheets and different systems. And you're going to run into human error, and it's really quite tiring.
Yeah.
And then on a more high-level, cultural, aspirational level, no one felt like they were part of the same team because people were in Salesforce on one side and Basecamp on another, and they weren't really interacting the way that they should be on a team. So there's this transparency issue, both on communication, but also from a reporting standpoint. And these are the 3 things that HDMZ came to Affinity Live for and really addressed quite well. So this is half of the San Francisco team. And who we're going to focus on today are the 3 individuals on the left. So Janice, who's the project manager, focus on how she can set up a new marketing campaign, track those budgets, and then schedule out her team. How David can come in and easily log time on his task board and timesheet around content creation. And then Rebecca, how she can see what time is being logged and then quickly sync that over to QuickBooks. So let's hop into Janice's world. So what Janice gets to see when she logs in is a full overarching view of how all the projects are going within my organization, and then filtering down specifically into hers. So she can see how the budgets are being tracked. Are things actually being delivered on time? And then is there activity around it? What I like about this is it's a combination of time being logged, communication being had, meetings being scheduled with the customers, is not just purely based on time tracking. So what Janice can quickly see is that Marketo email campaign that we're doing for Medtronic, which is a medical device biotech company, is that budget seems to be on track and doing well. The due dates are doing well, and also activity. There seems to be good time logging against it. So let's take a look at Marketo. So the way that she can come in and set up a project is you can think of these in the Basecamp world as to-do list, and they're categorized by high-level milestones. So we have the planning, discovery in the beginning, the creative aspect, the actual production of the campaign, putting together the media, and then some sort of project rollout. And then on the right-hand side, we have the overall flow of the project. And what I really like about this is it's drag and drop, meaning I can quickly move things around. And more of the modern PMs around there do have this functionality. What they often don't have is the ability to put in actual budgets and hours. So how are you currently invoicing or communicating with your client around hours, budget? Is it time and materials, fixed bid, hybrid?
So I think this is where we have a lot of trouble with retainer clients. We just track, number of hours, and we'll pull quick time reports every month. For, one-off projects that have like a flat cost, I think it's really hard to get visibility into if we're over budget or if we're under budget or whatever, because it's up to the account executive, or in this case, the project coordinator, to raise their hand if they think that we're spending way too much time on a campaign, and that rarely happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So I don't know what to say there, if that's the actual internal team and the communication that goes around that, or if that's something that can be solved with this tool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of our problem areas. But this, I think what you're showing us here is really exciting, and I think our CEO would be really excited because, he's the one that's always looking at, the profitability and stuff. So
yeah,
this is really cool.
So in your case, what I suggest, if it's been in the past challenging to actually go out and budget and set expectations with your customers, is that you can always run your first project in Affinity Live without setting budgets, and then you would still get all the time tracking around it and still see how long it takes. And then on the next project you deliver, you then have the expectations of the past ones and the actual and really what happened. So it's no longer raising your hand and guessing. It's now, well, the last Marketo campaign that we did with a similar size tech firm had this many hours in the creative process. So you can start.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think the costing team and the business development team butt heads because, of course, costing wants to make sure that whatever estimate we provide is in line with the effort, and they're always getting pushback from the business development side saying it's way too high.
Uh-huh. So
it's a constant battle.
Mm-hmm. And it's the classic relationship actually between the sales and the project team. The sales team wants to sell more, and often you can sell more if you lower the price. And the project team looks at the sales team and says, there's no way we can do this in 27 hours. This is at least a 40-hour piece of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
What's powerful about this is now you have the collateral to say for the costing team that it takes this many hours, and now you're giving the sales team this exact same template tool in which to set out their quotes. And it's exactly the same in what you see here, but it's just wrapped up and filtered into a nice looking PDF. So now you're giving the sales team exactly what you expect to deliver, and then in one click they convert it to the costing side that team to actually deliver on it. So we're seeing it in HTMZ's case when I was talking about, the sales and design team didn't know what each other were up to. This is where it really lowers the barrier from actually getting new business to executing on it. Not only from a communication aspect, does Spear Marketing look great to these customers, or are we delivering on their promises, but then going down to the team level, how people feel about each other and interact on a daily basis.
I had a quick question. So this is basically a schedule view. Is there a way to dump this schedule into sort of a client-facing document? And is this where, I would, because essentially the AE requests schedules from me because I have basically the window into everyone's workload.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be making this schedule Now, is there a way to dump that into like a client-facing, kind of document that they can send to the clients?
Are we talking about the ongoing communication on where a project is tracking, or is this before we even get to
Before we even start work?
Mhm.
Usually, once everything's approved and we can start, I make a schedule.
Yeah.
Client signs off, and then we move to that schedule.
Mm-hmm. And this process of what I'm showing you now is actually how we go through a sale. So what I
Okay.
can do is I can put this story, the Janus, on hold and move a little bit further upstream, because that seems to be a really big pain point, and then move back into this project. How does that sound?
I'm fine with you going on your current trajectory. I can wait and be patient.
Well,
I know
it's
you're
actually
really
more
anxious, though, Jared.
Yeah.
it's actually more the natural flow. I just like to always show how to set up a project so that when we get to the sale, it's not a conversation about project management. Rather, it's a conversation about how to effectively communicate that estimate to your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And how much familiarity do you already have with Salesforce, so I don't bore you on the CRM conversation?
I have a decent
With
knowledge
Salesforce?
but
Or
not a
just
ton.
sales tracking?
I think I don't have much visibility into it unless I have to work with it with my clients.
Okay. So what I'm
Jared,
going
you
to
probably were in it more than me for Spear,
Yeah, I've got a little,
right?
a little bit of knowledge, but not a ton.
Sure. So what I'm about to show you is there is automation and workflow along this process, like I was saying before, around sending out emails, which is actually quite exciting and a big shift from Salesforce. So for example, if this is a new customer and I'm trying to get them interested in my Marketo campaign, I can actually build in email templates that will be sent directly from my Gmail. Things like this. Automatically populating templates and sending it out to Tim. So you can move through this workflow of gaining interest, actually sending out proposals and creating them, and it's all built into here. But what I'll now show you is how we can add a quote. And this is a quote for the Marketo campaign. And the first step is to actually add that estimate from the costing team. And what the costing team can do is put in a whole bunch of templates for the sales team to say, oh, this is a campaign, and insert what a normal campaign would look like and all the estimates and the dollar amounts that are associated with it. So if you remember that project we were setting up, this is essentially exactly the same thing. And I can always come in here and change things around.
That's what I was going to ask. like Jared was saying earlier, we'd love for all of our campaigns to fit inside a pretty little box, but we regularly get a unique scope that we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to kind of make up costs for it.
Sure. And what I like about going through the unique scope is that you can change things right here. For example, you can put different milestones. Maybe we were already doing email campaigns, so maybe there's a landing page that needs to be added to this. And then some coding that goes involved into it. You can always build that out as well from here. And for the hours, we can start assigning both task level rate or also per person level rate. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way that you build up this quote or budgets, however you want to think about it.
Okay.
And now your team can send out this particular quote with a lot of flexibility around what they show. So often what we're seeing is not as much rate or hour amount estimates, and then usually rolling it up to some high level overview. So what you're seeing here is essentially that really pre-built defined project plan from the costing team, and now you're giving the sales team the power to essentially send out really good looking quotes, but that also relate back to those original estimates which you're putting together.
Okay.
Any questions about the process before I go and send this quote off?
No, that looks good. I'm actually potentially have questions after you do this publish and send, but let's see where you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Can I predict it? Is it based on approvals?
No, it's actually based more on sort of the flow and being able to communicate, because usually when they do an estimate and they post it back to a salesman, there's, back and forth. So this is how okay, so you're sending this to Tim, who could be the person requesting the estimate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just, okay.
So who else needs to be involved from Medtronic? You can then pull down only Tim, or we can pull down different.
So usually in any post, there's, I don't know, roughly 6 to 8 people, right, Liz? And there's a bunch of people that need to see this happening.
Okay.
So yeah, just really quickly into the whole costing process. So whether it's a new client or an existing client, someone will post specs for like a new campaign, and then it's up to the costing team to make sure that our specs are consistent with previous costing, and also have enough detail that we can identify who's going to be involved, so that way we could put rates and hours to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's sent once the estimate is all set, then it's sent back to the requester internally, and then it's the requester's job to send the cost via email, kind of informally, to the client. And then from that point, the client will say, oh, this is great, let's get a proposal, so that we can sign it. Or they'll say, this is way too high, how can we lower it? So there's a lot of back and forth. I mean, there have been times where we have to go back and touch an estimate, 10 times before we actually get an approval, or it just, doesn't ever get approved.
Got it.
So how would a salesman request a cost from the costing team?
That is something we can actually build into one of our workflows.
Okay.
So in this particular sale, what we would do is we would build proposal requested and then put a task on the costing team.
Okay.
And I'm going to click on this and show you what the already pre-built workflow is. By default, it goes to the sales manager in this example, but we can have it go to anyone on the costing team in a pre-built fashion, where we can say create the cost for, and this is for the Medtronic, and then have this show up on something that they need to do.
Okay. And now with the assignee, can that be more than one person?
Right now, tasks are only assigned to one person.
Can you group people and send it to a group? Is that...
Okay, so there's 2 things we can do. One, create a physical task, and I'll show you what that looks like now. Okay. What HDMZ does for their workflow process is actually use our internal notifications functions through Notes.
Okay.
And then predefines the whole entire costing team as Mark and Gary and who else is on it? Jessica. And this email, when it moves to the create a costing, will then be notifying them internally within Gmail or here within the system.
So it lives in the system and you get an email notification, basically.
That would be the way to send it to the whole entire team.
Okay. So what I'm currently looking at is basically like the I don't know, the communication feature in Basecamp, which is just like you're creating a talking thread, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like an email, and it kind of looks like an email.
Yeah.
Exactly. What I actually
and then
really
you can copy people.
Yep.
Sorry. And when, let's say, Mark is the one that responds, will everybody be able to see his response?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So this is where we differ from other collaboration tools like Basecamp. This all goes to everyone's email. Then the full communication around that can happen here within Affinity Live or in your email. It's all coming back here into this particular sale that we're working on. So it makes it very easy for you to continue conversations wherever you want without having to copy and paste missed communications or BCC or CCing anyone.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
I'm actually excited to play around with this stuff. So
Great. There's a lot to explore, especially moving from one area of the system to another, for example, from a sale to a project. Okay, so you're asking about the conversations that are going back and forth. You can start now having redrafts and different versions and additions. For example, I can come in here and you're talking about actually, now we're to the stage of actually pre-assigning people. And you can do this here from the sales level as well. For example, the client meeting is probably going to be Janice, who's the project manager. And the concepts, I know that Kadri is a person who's more of our creative team. I can then pre-assign them to the different tasks and then have their rate flow into the quote as well if we wanted. So let's preview and publish and send this off as the second edition.
So basically everything that is in an estimate converts into a milestone in which you can assign different resources.
Exactly. And you can also pre-assign different resources from this view as well. So actually, since we already have a project underway and it's going to be the exact same thing, we can just convert at the end of that quote. Once we get approval from Tim at Medtronic, we can then convert that quote into what you're seeing right here, a live project in which we can manage. And now I want to move, because we're bumping up on about 20 minutes left, to the scheduling of the work. If we were to keep things unassigned, or if we were to want to move people around on this particular project. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side are all the tasks and milestones associated with this particular project. And then on the right-hand side are all the different people who you want to pull in within your organization. So we probably want to take a look at what myself, Janice, is up to, David's important, and then Kadri's another person on this project. And we can see, based on all the other work that they're doing in the system, this could include both the services and retainers part, what they're up to. So for example, she's attached this SEO retainer and has work already on her calendar.
Is there a way to, when you're assigning work to a resource, say that there's a build that takes, I don't know, 15 hours and you want to span that over 5 days? Mm-hmm. Is there a way to do that in the system so it just pops up and populates these calendars?
Yeah, and that's actually what Automatically is doing right here. This interactive dashboard we're building for Medtronics. I have this requirements analysis task, and it's a few day task at 3.5 hours.
Oh, so you just put in how many hours a day you want it to do, and you want the person to work, and then you say like the amount of days? Right. So if I have a 10-hour task and I'm assigning it to 5 days, then it's going to block out 2 hours on each of my day automatically. And if I were to do it like over the span of 3 weeks, would I have to like remove weekends, or does it automatically do that? It automatically pushes over based on what you've designed as non-work days for a particular company or people. Got it. Okay. So you can use this two ways. You can tactically use it as, for example, I'm going to drag and drop concepts. I want Kadri to actually work on this concepts on Friday morning because I have a client meeting with them Friday afternoon.
So I'm going to specifically schedule this on her calendar between 9 a.m. and it's a 6-hour task. Ooh, we're definitely pushing it. But now this is showing up on her calendar for her to specifically do this at a given time and is syncing over to her Gmail calendar. So you can tactically move things around, or in conjunction, you can use this as a way to just automatically buffer and fill up people's time without having to actually drag and drop and move things around.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see when they're like capped for their 8-hour day.
Mm-hmm. And that's more or less at the 9-hour hit mark. You can then see that. We allow you to overbook, to shift things around, or let's say that someone's doing a Flex Friday and has agreed to overwork on Thursday, or we allow that.
That's cool.
Anything about the tactical moving around of timesheets, or sorry, not timesheets, the team schedule?
I have one question. So is this just one project you're looking at, or is this all the projects that have been assigned to everyone?
This is everything. So this is a retainer and that project. For
Mhm.
Mark, this is all of his implementation projects that he's working on. And so it just depends by person. And this of what we're looking on the left-hand side is just this project, but I can pull up all the projects within the organization and quickly move things around and drag and drop as well.
And is there a view to just look at one person at a time and do that kind of finagling with the dragging and dropping, but just seeing like one person?
Yeah, what I can do is I can bring it down to just David if you want. There is an older view, and that would be the My Schedule function, but it doesn't have some of the nice drag and drop functionality that you're seeing on this much newer screen.
Got it. Okay.
So I prefer, if you're looking on one person, just to keep it on one person here.
Okay.
Can we go back to can we go back to the schedule for just a single campaign?
How do you mean?
Like when you were doing that estimate for, well, you were doing that quote.
Mm-hmm.
You budgeted like a certain amount of hours for creative and concepting and production and all that. Right.
So you're interested in looking back at this Marketo email campaign?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're saying, you know, planning is going to take this long, creative is going to take this long. Can you build it? Can you make like a schedule out of that, like a calendar, and it says like, you know, to show a client, say, look, we're going to deliver concepts on April 8th, or.
Mm-hmm. And the way that we actually build the schedule is, and I'm going to do a little bit of clicking. Through our client portal, you're able to give the customer access to see the project and overall due dates, and potentially even open it up to how many hours subtract. So the client portal, when the customer logs in, would look exactly like this that you're seeing right here. Would have
and it would have all of their projects.
Right. So for example, if I were to go to, I think Pluma would be a better example to show you. Because they have a few more projects underway. And I'm going to log in as Jessica Marks, who's their internal marketing manager. So now I'm changing hats. I'm now logging in as a customer of HDMZ's. So when Jessica Marks logs in, this is what she sees. She can see all the quotes, all the active projects that we're doing with HDMZ. I can then log into each of these projects, and if HDMZ is allowing me to, be able to see it, not in this example, start and due dates, but it has dollar usage on this. Let's see if the new website has actual start and due dates. And what I particularly like about the starts and due dates is that they're automatically updating for the client, so they don't have to consistently email you twice a week asking, okay, what is the actual status of this particular area? But they can always do that. Similar to the collaboration around Basecamp, a customer can come in and create a stream or a thread and can email Janice, the project manager, saying, what's going on?
But they can't just email anyone they want, right? Because I would hate to get an email from a client. Not that they would know to email me.
Do your clients know who you are? I guess is the better question.
Well, the account executives are the face.
Yeah.
I mean, they never talk
Right.
to me ever. So
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats at Sphere. I'm not only looking for this project management software, but I'm also an account executive, and I also work with a costing team.
Mm-hmm.
And we, as an account executive, we are, the day-to-day contact for clients. We don't want them to go and reach out to Jared and say, hey, can you give me my schedule?
So what we would do is we will start locking down things. Probably we will lock down dollar amount usage tracking. We might want to lock down, can they directly email us, and maybe who's specifically working on different things. We would want to erase some of that information.
Yeah.
you can control.
And they could not see our internal, messages to each other, right?
Right. They can't actually click into any of these tasks.
And that little yellow thing is a message to someone?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
It's an activity, and here in this example, it's them sending a message to us. But if you recall, an activity can also be a meeting or a call or anything else.
Yeah.
That you want to log time on or communicate around.
So could they only send notes to their account executive, or is it kind of like all or none?
That's a good question. I mean, they could always send emails to the account executive, and you can then track the emails back to this project and just have conversation through that method instead of the client portal. If we don't want them consistently spamming us, I would suggest just taking the activity off.
And they can just send us an email,
Exactly.
a regular old email.
Right.
Okay.
Have that level of expectation with them.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, great. All right, we're coming up on time. I definitely want to show time logging, right? That would be something that would be useful.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's switch hats to someone on the team who just wants to quickly log time. And we make it really easy for them to see what they need to do on any given day. And actually, in this case, we've limited their view to just what they need to see every single day so they don't get bogged down by all the high-level details. So David can come in here and say, oh, I have nothing to do today. So we can come in here and
Jared would be so mad if that's what they said.
Uh-huh. Well, now it's up to Jared to take a look at the team schedule to make sure that David does have something to do today. And he can come in here and look at all the communication that maybe has happened around this particular task. And there's two things that he can do to easily log time. One would be to create a timer. And what I like most about this is when I'm writing content, I don't want to have that up here. I actually want to go back to the Medtronic and maybe look at past emails that we've used in our email campaigns, for example, and just have this run all the time underneath. So this makes it really easy for David to check time on this and also hop back and forth between other projects, just giving him more tools to more effectively log his time and keep track of it without getting in the way of having to log in to click time and log out based on really nothing.
But you have to be pretty on top of that, right? I mean, what if you forget to turn off? If you turn on one, will the other one automatically turn off?
Exactly.
And what if you forget to turn it off? Like, let's say you
If
Take
you
a quick
forget
trip
it,
to the grocery store.
yeah, sure. So let's say in this example, it's been running for 22 hours, right? If you come in here to the note that you're making, you can then actually come back in here and manually adjust it.
Okay.
And you can see that the time has now been logged on this particular task. That's one way to do it. If it doesn't get past David and David doesn't remember that he actually didn't spend 22 hours on a particular task, then what we can do is also have that level of approval before we go to the invoice process, where we can have a project manager or account executive come in and take a look at all the time people have logged, just to make sure that things look right.
Okay.
And another way he can log time is very similar to QuickTime, but what you'll notice here is it's not completely blank when he logs in Friday afternoon. It actually has some tasks that have already popped up. So this is the one thing.
Oh, so you don't necessarily have to go looking for it.
Right, it's automatically coming in. So last week is a little bit more examples to show you. So this is not only pulling in what he's already logged throughout the system, it's also being suggestive. It's pulling external appointments that he's had on his calendar. Maybe you should start logging those.
Oh, that's cool.
It's also, and I can't show you here, I'm going to hop back to Janice's calendar or timesheet. It's also pulling in all the emails that you're communicating with the clients around. So from an AE perspective, people are really loving Affinity Live because you're so client facing, and at the end of your 8 to 15 hour day, you look back and think, what the heck did I do this week? You actually have a track of what the heck you did this week now. So Rebecca not only has task suggestions, but let's see if she's had some emails in the past that she can start logging time on. So for example, she actually was emailing about a wrong invoice that went out. She can start tracking time on that.
That's cool.
And that was non-billable because that was our mistake. But you can imagine all of the other mistakes that happen on the customer side throughout a project, and tracking those 2 minutes, the 3 minutes, the 5 minutes, and all those really, really add up. Not only around projects, but if you think about it, all of client communication.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's cool. That's cool, because at the end of my day, I'm like, I know I did so much, but I couldn't tell you what I did.
Right.
What about like, because I don't track time to specific jobs, because I'm just in everything all the time. Is there a way to track time for someone like me?
Admin sort of work.
Okay. Perfect.
So you would do it against yourself and probably have different categories for client. So HDMZ is internally Janice's company.
Okay.
So you can always track time. Let's say it's admin work or whatever high level work. I can now say I did 2 hours for that.
Okay.
Or we can start putting project management little tasks or milestones on a project or whatever client work you're doing, and then attribute it back to that, where it's still high level, but it still relates back to a specific project or client.
Okay.
So that would be the place to track those things. And
okay, and I know we have just a couple more minutes. Really quickly, so what happens like at payroll time? How do we see how many hours everyone, clocked in the last 2 weeks?
So two answers. Are you looking for a overall view of everyone, or just specifically by project? Because there's two different approaches.
Let's just do it for everyone for the sake of time.
Okay. So I would go to the timesheet report, and I'm able to look on specific people, what they've logged against all of our clients. And then are we looking to take a look at everyone, right? We could then pull all the time that has been logged within certain date ranges. And drill down into each project and exactly what happened. So it's not only useful from a overall budget tracking, how much money my team brought in or specific people, how much internally did they cost to us and how many hours, but it's also nice from just getting an overarching view of what's going on. And that's probably the biggest challenge from both of your perspectives, because you have your hands on so many different projects that understanding the little emails that go back and forth or all the conversation or movement around projects and not really getting a good sense, here's a good place to drill down into that.
Cool. This would be something more for you, Liz, this view. What do you think of this? Being able to see all your projects and all the correspondence and stuff?
Yeah, I'm just trying. I don't know how that looks.
Yeah, what format
Sorry,
are
I'm
you
also
trying to
getting
do
like
it?
pinged. I just got pinged by like 3 people at once on IM too. Yeah, I'd love to play around with this a little bit more just to kind of see how it would work.
Okay. And the final workflow that I like to show from this timesheet report is you can approve work and then create invoices directly for that time that you've logged or for just the fixed bid, and all that syncs over. It's a two-way sync with QuickBooks. It's really nice and easy. At the end of the project, you don't necessarily have to export it for the client-facing invoicing side. It's going to reduce your time to invoice by a lot and make you guys look good.
Very cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic. Did you have questions about the overarching license prices? I can always quickly touch on that before we hop off.
Yeah, I actually don't think I covered any of that with Allison. So, I mean, let's say we decided to go, with just projects versus all of your products. What's the cost difference? I'm sure you guys do it monthly. Or is it annually?
So it's on a per month basis. If you were to go with our overall PSA, here's the price. If you were to go for just projects, what we looked at today was some of the workflow customizations and also the scheduling and forecasting aspects would be in premium, and this would be per user per month for your team.
Okay, great. Can you send this to me?
The video or this actual slide?
Well, not just the video, but just this rate sheet here.
Sure. So I'll definitely send you the video. I'll send you this rate sheet. It's on our website as well, but I kind of like the format of this.
Cool.
Okay, I'll send that to you. And definitely next steps for your team would be actually getting into the trial, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll talk to Allie and have her set up a deployment for you to log into. Would you like just to be spear.affinitylive.com? Is that easy enough for you?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
And can both Jared and I have access to it?
Mm-hmm. I'll make sure to include both Jared and Liz.
Great.
And you can actually invite anyone else to the deployment. It essentially is a full-on product, and the only difference is at the end of the trial, you'll be actually paying us for using it versus this complimentary period, which means that you can break it, you can test it as hard as possible before you actually buy the exact same thing.
Cool.
All right, great. Any last questions or comments for me?
I'm all right.
No, but I'm sure, once we start poking around here, we'll be bugging you guys about our questions.
Absolutely. And actually, I'll have Allie follow up with some time that she's free next week. Usually what we like to do is just get a Q&A on the books anyways, so that after a few days of you testing and going through it, then we can start answering the questions live on a screen share again instead of the email that goes back and forth.
Okay, that
Cool.
sounds great.
All right, fantastic. Well, Liz and Jared, nice meeting you, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you, and nice meeting you as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, take care. Nice music.
All right. Bye-bye.